WVNN. Depend on it. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The time has come for America to hear the truth.
We are going to stand with them, and not only are we going to fight for their rights, but we're going to stand up for our rights here in our state, in our homes, and in our community.
One day longer, one day stronger. One day longer, one day stronger.
Because the future of labor's rights in the United States of America is not going to be decided in the courts. It's not going to be decided in Congress. It's not going to be decided on talk radio, and it sure is not going to be decided on Fox News.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Good morning, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, David Story. It is Saturday, January 9th, 2020, and we are broadcasting live online and on the radio on WVNN in the Huntsville, Decatur, Athens listening area from Athens, Alabama. A recording of this program will play tomorrow, Sunday, January 10th, on the great WGOL in Russellville, Alabama. Today, we are talking to Alabama mine worker Dedrick Gardner, talking about the new year and taking calls. If you want to chat with us, the phone number is 1-866-494-9866. So thanks for tuning in, folks. We really appreciate your time. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week, get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at Jacob M_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. And if you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, you can search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You should definitely do that. And you can go back and watch the full show there. We also clip segments throughout the week and release them. So if you don't want to watch the full show, but there was something that we talked about that you think might interest you, you should subscribe to the channel, and you can just watch the things that are interesting to you. We also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. We have a website you should go to, thevalleylaborreport.org. And finally, if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, you can donate to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. The more listener support that we have, the less we have to rely on advertising. That is good for the long-term stability of the show, as well as enjoyability of the show. I do not enjoy being interrupted by ads, and I'm sure that people listening don't enjoy ads. So, don't like ads, then throw us $1 a month or something. That would be the way to attack that. So, on the phone today, we are talking to Dedrick Gardner. He is an Alabama mine worker. He is the chair of the Grievance Committee and an organizer for the United Mine Workers of America District 20. Brother Dedrick, thank you for your time today. Thanks for talking to us.
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So, Dedrick, how did you become a coal miner in Alabama? There's not a whole lot of coal mining jobs anymore. What brought you to the industry? What got you into coal mining?
Well, first of all, what got started me in the mining industry? It started off as a bet. We were standing out one day.
That's all good stories.
Okay.
And we were standing out one day, and being a friend of mine, he said, "Man, you ain't gonna go down there." I said, "I bet you I will if they hire me." And it went on from there. And he said, "Well, we gonna go tomorrow and put in an application." Well, I went to put in an application, and he didn't, and I've been there ever since.
Yeah, he's
So
probably
that's how I got my mining career started.
probably unhappy that he didn't go.
Well, he's turned out to be successful.
Okay.
He has his own business. He got into business for himself, so
Okay.
it works out. He helps me, and I help him.
Well, there you go. There you go. So what, tell us, there's a lot of folks up here, here in Huntsville, there's a lot of kind of like paper pusher, desk type jobs. What's it like, being down in the mines? Do you have you got any like really interesting stories being down in the mines, or it just what is that job like for somebody that's down in the mines every day?
Well, first of all, in order to work in a mine, you got to be a very special individual, especially mentally. And second of all, no matter who you are or what you are, when you drop underground, all that is forgotten about.
Yeah.
Because at that point of time, it's about providing for your family. It's about a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a family type in culture, because you go down there to provide, and you go down there to make it out safely.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing, because you're saying the same thing. I've never been inside a mine, but I've watched a lot of these documentaries on the labor history up in West Virginia and areas like that, and everybody says the same thing. Everybody in y'all's union says the same thing. It takes a special type of person. It takes a very strong mental person to be able to stay down there for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And then at the end of the day, it's about your family.
Exactly.
Right. And you mentioned that it takes a special type of person mentally to be able to do that. And that's something that I reckon probably a lot of paper pushers, so to speak, kind of take for granted, that they reckon that they do the mental work, and folks like coal miners do the physical work, and there's not a whole lot of overlap, they think. And really it takes, you've got the unskilled labor is not, that's largely a myth. It takes, you've got to have, you've got to be intelligent to be able to do this kind of work.
Exactly. A lot of people always tell you the most dangerous thing you do in life is drive a car, which numbers have shown that. But when you have a family member and a loved one that works in a coal mine, I feel like it's just important too as well, because you never know when that's going to be your last time placing eyes on them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean,
because when you're down there,
go ahead, sorry.
It's about survival.
Right. Yeah, we've got monuments in the state of Alabama to lost coal miners. I mean, people don't realize the history here and the loss of life that we've seen because of greedy capitalist mine owners. Really, there's no other reason that people have lost their lives other than these folks took advantage of regulations that weren't in place and put our brothers and sisters' lives at risk and lost those lives.
Exactly.
So that leads us to a good segue into the union aspect of this. I mentioned that you're a chair of the grievance committee. You're an organizer for the United Mine Workers, and the mining industry has historically been pretty union dense. What would you say is kind of the what is the interplay there between the union and the work, and like what does it mean to you and to your sisters and brothers on the job to actually have a union on the job and be able to to advocate for yourselves?
Okay, let me back a little. For one thing, when it comes to union, I was raised in a union household. My daddy being with the post office and my mama being an educator department. The thing about union when it comes to coal mining, the number one thing that I come to learn and that we stand firm on is your individual safety rights, considering the conditions of the job. And at one point of time, companies used to recognize and value their employees because they gave them life health care. And the reason why is because you're working in such hazardous conditions. You're taking in dust. No matter how respirators or things, different other PPEs you try to do to prevent that. It's just a part of the job. And I feel by being union, it bags and it holds the accountability to the companies to make sure that the employees have the best working conditions possible.
That's exactly right. You know, in almost every industry, you're not going to have, you know, the boss isn't going to give you, very rarely is the boss going to give you better pay and good working conditions out of, you know, the kindness of their heart. You've got to take it. You've got to take it. And that's you know, the union allows you to do that. The union allows you to exert the power that you have, because the coal ain't getting out of the mines without y'all. You can have as many bosses up above the ground as you want. It ain't getting out there if you don't have anybody down in the mines pulling it out. And so the union allows y'all to exert that power that you have, the power that you have with your labor, you know, because y'all are the ones doing the work.
Exactly.
So how did you get into, you know, what made you want to not only be in the union? You know, it sounds like you've got a history of this. You said you're from a union household. Your daddy was a postal worker. Your mama was a educator. So you know you were raised with, unlike a lot of folks in Alabama, you were raised knowing the value of having a union on the job, of being able to stand with your sisters and brothers on the job for your rights. But what was it that made you want to go into be active in the union, to be a chair of the grievance committee, to be an organizer for the union?
Because first of all, I already know I live in a right-to-work state. I know that companies can fire you at will. But then if you just look at the common thing that everybody has, the state law in Alabama says in order to operate a vehicle, you must have insurance. Why not work and be a part of a union, some form of insurance on your employment too as well?
Yeah.
You need a covering nowadays. These companies are doing what they want to do and not realize it's the labor in these people's backs that are producing whatever, whether it's coal, whether it's steel, anything in the industrial environment, they're doing it on their backs and they're reaping the benefits of it. Mm-hmm. And I would have no choice but to feel like I need some kind of protection. I need some form of representation.
Yeah.
I couldn't work if I didn't have representation, because these companies need to be held accountable for what takes place on these jobs.
Yeah. And not only accountable, but, you know, one thing that we talk about a lot on this show is restoring the democracy in the workplace. In other words, you know, they like to talk about the founding fathers and implementing democracy in our country, but especially in our state and a lot of the southern states, nobody ever wants to talk about democracy in the workplace and allowing these workers to have a say-so in their lives and in what they're doing on a daily basis.
Right. Dedrick, we're going to bring you back on the other side of this break. Everybody else, stay tuned. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report. We're talking to Alabama coal miner Dedrick Gardner.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
All workers deserve fair wages, affordable health care, and a retirement plan that enables them to retire with dignity. All workers deserve to have a say about the terms and conditions of their employment, not just the bosses. With the machinist union's over 600,000 members having our back, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama has been serving workers' interests for over 20 years. Our members have the best health insurance in the area with zero deductible plans. We set the bar for pay in the area with over $40 an hour rates, consistently averaging the highest non-college degree jobs in North Alabama with some of the best retirement plans in the industry. We can do the same for you. Together, we remain united, raising our voices to ensure justice on the job and service in the community. The Machinist Union is a true Southern union founded in Atlanta in 1888. We have been serving members' needs for 132 years. The longevity of our union proves our dedication and loyalty to the working class. The Machinist Union isn't just for machinists. We represent workers in government, healthcare, auto workers, aerospace workers, transportation workers, the defense industry, and woodworking. Our members even build the iconic Harley-Davidson motorcycles. If you're ready to get serious about better benefits and wages, if you want to have a voice in your workplace with over 600,000 members to back you up, call or email us today at 256-286-3704 or organize at iamaw44.org.
Here in Huntsville, federal employees are an invaluable part of the nation's defense, offering unmatched expertise in engineering and technology and as stewards of taxpayer dollars. What we ask for in return is to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, is a union of working people looking out for each other, making sure that we're treated right. To inquire about joining or to learn more, call 256-876-4880.
Hey y'all, are you tired of hearing that the South is just a bunch of racist rednecks? Well, tune in to Dixieland of the Proletariat podcast. We talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Join Nelson, Senior Telecommunications Director Tommy, Comrade Kate, former pig farmer Tyler, and Brother William, wherever you stream your podcast. And good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we'll see y'all next time. It's Dixieland of the Proletariat, y'all.
WVNN.
Folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is David Story. On the line, we've got Alabama mine worker, chair of the Grievance Committee, and an organizer for the United Mine Workers of America District 20, Brother Dedrick Garner.
And can we just say, from the short amount of time that we've been talking to him, all around badass. Can we say that on the radio?
I think we can say that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Seriously, it's really great to talk to you. I appreciate you taking your time and talking to us about about being a miner and being a unionist in Alabama. Tell us about. I think it might be interesting and helpful, even for other union members like myself and like some of the folks listening, to maybe learn about what the grievance process in your union looks like, and maybe you could walk us through like a specific case that you've done as chair of the grievance committee. I don't know how long you've been chair of the grievance committee, but like what does that look like when a worker is harmed on the job or something is done wrong to them? What does that process look like for them with the union in the workplace, through the grievance procedure?
Well, to better make it simple and plain, the grievance committee is when they put black and white on you, you turn around and put black and white on them. And when I say that, it's an accountability thing because I believe in accountability strong. And what it is, when the company challenges you, you turn around, you challenge them to uphold what is in that bargaining agreement. And not just the bargaining agreement, you try to do the process in the events in different steps and different phases. And it's different steps to it. It's 1, 2, 3. And if there's no resolve, you put it in front of a neutral party.
Yeah.
But in the grievance process, you would think that you can work situations out between the employee and the employer to get some resolve. So that's all the grievance process is to challenge what's been challenged to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes people can step out of the line what's in the black and white. And most of the time what causes that situation is because the company tries to take advantage of the employee. And what we do is represent the employee to get them due diligence.
Yeah. And let's...
Whether it's...
Go ahead.
Whether it's pay, whether it's time served, different things. It's different things you can challenge it for because it asks you what you want. What are you filing, or what would you what are you looking for in this grievance form? So
yeah, and I think
that's what a grievance is.
We need to back up because a lot of our listeners are union members, but there's a wide array of people that's listening on the radio that may not understand even what a grievance is in the process that you just explained what it refers to. But the fact is, the grievance process is born out of the contract that is negotiated between the workers and the employers. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important to point out, because most of the workers in the state of Alabama and most of the workers across the nation do not have a contract between themselves and the employers. And that contract is just simply an agreement that's negotiated on behalf of the union and on behalf of the employer to make sure that all of our working conditions, our wages, our retirement, our safety conditions are addressed, and both sides live up to that contract. No different than an automobile note that we sign, no different than a house note that we may sign. Everywhere else in the world, in the business community, we have a contract that ensures that both sides, if I say I'm going to pay X amount of dollars a month for my house payment, then they hold me to that. And if they say they're going to keep my interest rate at X% for the next 15 years, then I can hold them to that. And the union is simply a process to hold the employer and the employee to what they agreed to. And then when it's not happening, then that grievance process comes in. So I think that's important to explain to the listeners, because people, I mean, you know it, nobody has a clue about unions.
Right. And that's what he's talking about, holding them to the black and white. He's talking about the black and white that's on the contract that they have negotiated with the employer. We had somebody on on YouTube commented on one of our videos one time that you don't need a union because you don't need a contract because every place has an employee handbook. And it's like the foolishness of that. The employee handbook is written by the employer with no input from the employee, and it's at their whim. Like, they can change the employee handbook at any time. There's nothing to hold them accountable even to what they say voluntarily that they're going to do. With a union, with a contract, you've got that process laid out, like Brother Dedrick said, in black and white, and you've got a process laid out in black and white for rectifying issues that come about during the process of a workday. Mm-hmm. Brother, we've got just a few more minutes here, and like David said, just a couple more minutes here, and like David said, most of our audience most of America, most of Alabama they do not have a union in their workplace. And, New Year's resolutions, what would you say to folks that don't have a union in their workplace and about what it's like being in a union? Would you encourage them to join a union, form a union on the job, things like that?
I would tell everybody in the world to join. Organizing is a very special thing. And when I say it's very special, you got to get people on one accord. Yeah. And when you can get the workers on one accord, and you can get those people to come together, and you can get those individuals to sign up. Like, I'm a mine worker. You don't have to work in a coal mine to be organized by us. And nowadays, you have companies out here where unions are present, and sometimes you got to organize. Because you have companies trying to talk people from not participating in the union. So organizing is a very special thing, and I think people need to look at it and look into it, because at the end of the day, you want an answer for what's taking place on your bread and butter for your family.
Right. Dedrick, that's exactly right. That is a great place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for talking to us. We really appreciate it. That was fantastic. Brother, have a good Saturday.
Huntsville's #1 news, talk, and weather station, WVNN FM, WVNN FM Trinity, a Cumulus station. It's 10 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Democrats considering impeaching President Trump again, drafting up a resolution they could introduce Monday, blaming him for inciting Trump supporters to break into the Capitol. They are pushing forward even as pushback from Republicans on another trial. ABC's legal analyst Kate Shaw has more.
There may well still be a reason to hold a trial and to actually vote to disqualify Trump even after January 20th on the logic that it would prevent him from seeking and obtaining the nomination to run for president again in 2024 or to hold other federal public office.
Twitter taking the step to suspend the president's social media platform. The company says to stave off, it says, what they call more plans of violence. ABC's Deirdre Bolton says Twitter isn't alone.
Other companies are making similar decisions. Facebook has suspended the president, and Reddit has banned a pro-Trump forum for inciting violence. And now Apple is ordering right-wing social media app Parler to wipe out objectionable content within the next 24 hours or be booted from the App Store.
Flags at the U.S. Capitol are flying at half-staff in honor of fallen Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. Officials say the 42-year-old native of New Jersey died Thursday after working during that rampage. ABC's Kenneth Moten has the latest on the expanding investigation and criminal activity.
Alabama resident Lonnie Kaufman arrested Friday. D.C. police say he was armed with a military-style semi-automatic rifle and 11 Molotov cocktails. Kaufman, according to a complaint, later denied knowing anything about the bombs. West Virginia State Delegate Derek Evans also charged. Evans' attorney says he was exercising his First Amendment and did nothing wrong.
A recovery effort underway in Indonesia. A Boeing 737-500 disappeared from radar minutes after takeoff from an airport in Jakarta. 62 people on board. Flight radar showing that the plane lost 10,000 feet of altitude in about a minute before it disappeared. You're listening to ABC News.
This is an advertisement. Paid non-attorney spokesperson Ricky LeBlanc, admitted in Massachusetts only. Sokolov Law, LLC, Chestnut Hill, Mass. Paul J. Morgan, Winter Park, Florida. Greg Hobby, New Jersey. Michael Bro Gonzalez, admitted Louisiana. While this firm maintains joint responsibility, most cases of this type are referred to other attorneys for principal responsibility. Mesothelioma. If you know what mesothelioma is, you or someone you love has likely been affected by this devastating cancer. You may be entitled to compensation. Call Sokolov Law today. 1-800-578-2400. The only known cause of mesothelioma is asbestos exposure. Thousands of U.S. veterans and trade workers are at risk for the disease. Nearly $30 billion in court-ordered trusts has been set aside to pay money to asbestos victims. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, call now. You may be able to receive compensation without ever going to court or filing a lawsuit. Call for a free legal consultation at 1-800-578-2400. That's 1-800-578-2400. 1-800-578-2400.
Hey y'all, are you tired of hearing that the South is just a bunch of racist rednecks? Well, tune in to Dixieland of the Proletariat podcast. We talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Join Nelson, Senior Telecommunications Director Tommy, Comrade Kate, former pig farmer Tyler, and Brother William, wherever you stream your podcast. And good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. We'll see y'all next time. It's Dixieland of the Proletariat, y'all.
News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN.
folks. Good morning and welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is David Story. We appreciate you listening to us. If you want to give us a call, the phone number is 1-866-494-9866. Again, that phone number is 1-866-494-9866. If you want to give us a call, you can talk to us about anything. And you should anything. You should subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you missed the first 30 minutes of the show, we had a fantastic interview with an Alabama coal miner, Brother Dedrick Gardner, with the United Mineworkers of America, District 20. He's chair of the grievance committee. He's an organizer with the union. Man, he's got a good voice. I wish I had a voice that deep and smooth. It'd be much better for radio. But I really enjoyed that conversation. That was really good about what it's like being a coal miner, what it's like to have a union on the job, have a way to represent yourself, a way to advocate for your rights on the job. And that's a good kind of segue into what I wanted to talk about next, which was, look, 2021 is a new year. Everybody had a terrible 2020. A lot of folks are going to be
not everybody had a terrible 2020.
Yeah, well,
I mean, Elon Musk overtook Jeff Bezos as the richest. I mean, there's a lot of corporatists out there that
one
had
or two
a great
people,
2020.
had a great 2020, but working people did not have a good 2020 for a myriad of reasons. And there's a lot of folks out there making New Year's resolutions. I encourage that. Make because here's the secret. 2021 is not going to be better than 2020 if we don't make it better. We've got to we as a collective society, we shape the world that we live in. We create the world that we live in, and so a lot of folks are feeling really overwhelmed. They're feeling despair kind of at the direction of the country, at the at the actions of their countrymen last week, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what the next steps to take are. And here's what I would encourage you to do. I would encourage you to consider joining. If you've got a union at your workplace and you're not a part of it and you're listening to this show, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You need to call in and we need to have a chat. But you need to join your union, obviously. If you've got a union in your workplace, you are among the most lucky, privileged workers in the country to be able to have a voice on the job, to be able to have that kind of insurance, like Dedrick said, to be able to have those sisters and brothers that you can rely on to fight for you. You're among the most lucky workers in the country, and if you've got a union in your workplace and you're not a dues-paying member, you need to change that. You absolutely need to change that. And secondly, if you are a dues-paying member and you're not active in your union, you need to change that. You need to get active in your union. Because like anything else, like this country, like our society, the union is what is created by the members. And if you've got a lax membership, if you've got membership that don't really care, if you've got membership that simply sees it as insurance, that doesn't see it as anything other than insurance, it's not going to be a very good union. You're just going to have a bunch of paper members that are just sending in dues every month, and you're not going to be very active. You're not going to have a very effective union. So you need to be active in your union. But here's the big thing, and this is the part that's most relevant, or that's relevant to most of our audience. If you don't have a union, you should start working on that. Every worker deserves a voice on the job. Every worker deserves a say in how their company runs. Every worker deserves a say in how they are treated and what they're paid and how much vacation that they get and what their working conditions are like. You don't get that if you don't organize for it.
Yeah.
And so, I know that there's a lot going on, and a lot of it as an individual, you don't really have that much control over it as an individual. As a collective, we have complete control over everything, and the way to assert control, the way to gain control of our society and turn it, put it on the right track, right the ship, is to get organized. And when we come together in our workplaces and form unions, the first thing is, and the thing that's most relevant, or that is most immediately relevant, is that you get a better job. Right, when you form a union, your job is immediately better than it was before. Okay, you're going to have the right to bargain for your wages and working conditions. You're going to have a say on the job if your boss is harassing you, if you're being mistreated, you're not being paid enough, you don't get enough leave. You're going to have a means to get what you deserve. Okay, and so that's the first thing.
And before you leave that point, it needs to be pointed out that the safety aspect of your job, because right now, Strikewave, has this NLRB map showing all of these safety. OSHA map from all of these safety concerns has been turned in by employees all over the nation, and it's amazing how. And so when we talk about being able to negotiate a contract, being able to negotiate your wages and things like that, it's also the concern is ensuring your safety and the safety of the workers in your workplace, because without the company may put in some menial safety protections, but I can tell you our members have been, I know I have been extremely happy with the way that we've handled collectively with the union and the company working together to ensure the safety of the people on the shop floor. And to the best of our knowledge, we talked about it just this past week in a labor management meeting. To the best of our knowledge, we've had I think 34 COVID cases inside the plant. To the best of our knowledge, none of those cases have come from inside of the plant, and they haven't spread inside of the plant because of those protections that we put in place, and because we've paid people whenever they're sick to be able to stay home, as opposed to just forcing somebody to stay home with no economic ability to support their family for those 2 or 3 or 4 weeks.
Right. That's exactly. And you mentioned a company might can put in menial safety changes that don't really make a difference, or better yet, they could say that they're going to put in menial safety changes that don't really make much of a difference, and then they could just not follow through on that if you don't have a union, if the workers at the workplace are not organized, and if they're not. If the workers are not able to hold the company even to what they say, because like that commenter on that YouTube video some amount of time ago, he said, there are employee handbooks and blah, 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 blah. That's just what the employer says. That is just something that the boss wrote down by himself without even consultation of the employees. And there is nothing to hold him to that. That is not legally binding. That is not, there's no process for even holding them to what they say they're going to do if you're not organized.
So if somebody complains about it, then he just goes in or he or she, not to be chauvinistic, but he or she goes in and rewrites, okay, then this is the new employee handbook, and without any say.
Right.
Like you said.
Yeah, and so that's the first thing that organizing a union can do, and all of these things that I'm saying, it's not just conjecture. I'm not just being like oh, I like unions, so I'm just going to say that they make you safer. I'm just going to say that they give you higher wages. This is all like hard data. There have been study after study after study. Union members in the same, when you account for everything else. Everything else is accounted for. Education, experience, blah, 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 blah. All of these things. Yeah. Union members make at least 14% more higher wages. Just on the wages, 14% higher wages than the average non-union member in the same similarly situated.
And they do their job better.
And they do their job
Just
better.
this past week, I read an article that said people that are organized, that are in unions in the healthcare facilities, in the hospitals, had the patients where those were union jobs had a 36% chance, a greater chance of having a good outcome, as opposed to not. So even there, because you not only are you protecting your rights, your safety on the job, that gives you that ability to focus on what you're doing much better than if you're constantly worried about everything.
Right. And you know, you mentioned that there was a recent study that you saw about healthcare workers. There was one at the beginning of the pandemic when the big story was nursing homes that we talked about, we dived pretty deeply into, that showed that there was a 40% lower fatality rate in union nursing homes. It allows, and it's not that, look, I'm not saying that it's not that we're saying that union workers, like, just as individuals, are like better people than non-union workers. That's not what we're saying at all. Not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is that the circumstances of being in a union workplace, being able to have some amount of control over your environment, being in the different environment, allows the same exact people to perform better and to have higher wages and to have better working conditions and better health care and things like that. As far as, like, we're not at all saying union workers are like better than non-union workers.
I'm just kidding.
But we're saying that the environment, the change in the environment, allows us to do our jobs better. And that and it's been borne out. And so, you know, that's the kind of microscopic view of the small view. We're going to talk about the larger view on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. This is the Valley Labor Report.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. If you're looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334. That's 256-383-3334, or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN.
Try to act it up. You got the principal, they really act it up. You got the fire, try to act it up. You call the principal J-Rig at your up. You call the fire. You call yourself a good old boy.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is David Story. If you want to talk with us, the phone number is 1-866-494-9866. Again, that phone number is 1-866-494-9866. So before the break, we were talking about, good time to get active in your union. It's a good time to join a union if you've got one in your workplace, and it's a good time to form a union if you don't have one. And we talked about on the local level at your workplace, just for you and your coworkers, why it's a good thing. We talked about the fact, not the opinion, not my belief, not my conjecture, the fact that you get better wages, you get better working conditions, you're going to have better health care, you're going to better retirement, you're going to be able to perform your job better, you're going to be able to be a better worker, and that's especially relevant for people that really care about their jobs, that really are invested in their jobs, like healthcare workers, like those type of folks that really care about the people that they do that they provide a service for. Very relevant, because I know I have friends that are nurses that it really hurts them that their hospital administration is impeding their ability to do their job well by not hiring enough nurses, or by making them work too much, or by any number of things.
Not providing them with the proper safety gear.
Right. And so it'll allow you to do your job better, and that's especially relevant if you care about your job.
And most people do.
Most people do.
I mean, the fact is, most people do care about their job.
That's exactly right. And so we talked about all of that. But my segue into it was, if you're feeling if you're feeling down about the direction of our country, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't know what to do to make your country better. That was my segue into it, was that if you're feeling that way, you should form a union. And I started talking about these things that, look, it's going to make your life better on just on kind of the local level, but how does it relate to these bigger issues that are happening in our country? How does it relate to all of these other things? And the way that it relates is that when you organize, when you have a union, you, in all likelihood, you're going to join a larger organization like AFGE, which represents federal employees across the country. We have more than 700,000 members. You're going to join the Machinists Union, who has more than 500,000 members across the country, and in Canada and in Mexico, I believe.
Not Mexico.
And in Canada. That you're joining a big institution that has a history, that and you're going to be able to join together with those folks to demand things for people like you, not even people in professions that are like you, but just working people. Because you as an individual, let's say you write your congressperson for this or that reason or whatever, you should do that. That's fine. You should do that. But what if you get, 1,000 people at your that are at your workplace that write to your congressperson? Or what if you get 1,000 people that are willing to knock on doors for this or that candidate, or to knock on doors for this or that issue, or this or that ballot initiative? Here again is something that studies have borne out. This isn't just conjecture. When you have higher union density in a district, the politician representing that district is going to be more malleable to the demands of working people. There have been regression analysis, I believe is the word, of the votes of people and controlling the votes of representatives, controlling for everything else, and just looking at what union density does to a representative's voting record. And what it does is it makes them more likely to support the things that most of the people in the district support. Okay? So, if you've got a district where 70-80% of the people support a $15 an hour minimum wage, or 70-80% of the people support $2,000 survival checks, or like 70 or 80% of people in almost every district across this country supported those $2,000 checks, the representatives with higher union density in their districts are more likely to support that process. So David was talking about democracy in the workplace. Unions make democracy at the ballot box more real because they give working people an institution to make their demands known collectively to their representatives. And it's a really good way to put pressure on our politicians that we don't have through other means, that we don't have through just consuming political content on YouTube or on talk radio or by watching CNN or by writing a letter as an individual. Even these communities that we create around political talk shows, they're not nearly as organized, they're not nearly as cohesive as together as workers when we organize in the workplace in unions across districts and across the country and across the states and internationally.
But one thing, it also shifts. It shifts that burden that you see in non-unionized communities off of government reliance and on to the free market, which is something that rarely anybody ever wants to talk about, is the unions, the rising tide. The unions shift a lesser paid worker into a more moderately paid worker and allow them those resources to not rely on government assistance so much, which is what you see in a lot of the Walmarts and things like that. That is a drain on everybody. We got Eric on the line. He called in and wanted to talk about the current topic. Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Good morning. Fine, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity. The first thing, and it's hopefully something that we both agree on, is that not all people are the man and not all people are the union, in that neither are perfect and neither are always right.
No.
That's correct.
Anytime you get a large group of people together, there's a chance for groupthink.
That's something that I've said repeatedly on the show, is that unions are human institutions, and so you're going to have flaws in unions generally, and you're going to have flawed iterations of unions, just like you will with any human institutions, because humans are imperfect.
That's why I'm concerned about the comments that are like pro-union, pro-union, pro-union. Here's an example question. What do you think about the union at Dunlop Tires?
I work with several of the brothers that come from Dunlop.
Dunlop no longer exists here in Huntsville. I had a half a dozen guys that I worked with that the union came in from up north down to Dunlop Tires, asked them to unionize, really pushed the guys. They unionized them. Within a year, none of them had a job because they closed the plant. This is the one over in Madison.
Yeah.
And so all those guys lost their job because they took the jobs up north away from here. It was a scam the whole time on the guys that were here working and had a good job.
That's a good. But were you actively involved in Dunlop at all?
These were a half a dozen. These were guys that I visited with every weekend. We hunted together.
No, I mean,
years.
Okay, so you weren't actively involved in Dunlop.
No, they were actively involved.
Okay.
The
reason that I was
working
asking,
fine, and then the guys they loved their jobs.
Yeah.
They were complaining about that. They had no complaints with the jobs, and one guy was cutting tires. I mean, it was a variety of jobs.
Yep. Yeah, I currently work with a lot of the people that came from
used to
Dunlop
be at Dunlop.
Tires. Yep, used to be at Dunlop.
Dunlop's
exactly.
gone.
Yeah, exactly. Dunlop's gone. So here would be the question that I pose to you. Do you know anything about Goodyear Tire in Decatur?
like I said, I know good or bad.
Okay.
Yeah, Goodyear Tire I used to drive past, and it was kind of cool that it was there, and now it's gone.
Yeah, and you know what? Wasn't a union. Never unionized. So I think
that doesn't help. That improves that. That doesn't really necessarily help.
Well, what I'm saying is because we have a lot of talk that says unions drive jobs out of the area, and the point that I'm making is I do not believe that unions drive jobs out of the area. I believe what we've seen with NAFTA and numerous other free trade agreements that opens up lower wage working segments in other areas of the world, such as Mexico, such as Taiwan, such as Thailand, such as China, then capitalists see an ability to create more profit overseas and ship the product back into the United States. And
there's too many capitalists that do not like NAFTA.
Oh yeah,
That's
I don't
why we
disagree
have
with
NAFTA
you.
anymore.
Well, we've still got NAFTA.
That's really not a union. That's really not a union issue. We brought in too much free crap. And we've also opened up too many tire companies that are foreign owned here. That's what's caused that. So, the reason we lost that location there is that the union, which has a stronger hold on that tire company, made sure that companies outside of the areas that didn't have unions are the ones that closed.
Well, the analogy that I make would be, we got about 10 more seconds, would be that Goodyear wasn't union and they went offshore as well. It is what it is.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison. This is News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. News starts now.
A search underway for a Boeing 737 that's gone missing off Indonesia. It lost contact with air traffic controllers, and debris has reportedly been found in the water. Back home, President Trump now facing growing calls to step down, with House Democrats threatening to impeach Trump if he isn't sidelined by other means. Impeachment does not necessarily have to stop at the end of a president's term. ABC News legal analyst Kate Shaw.
It's actually possible to impeach a former official, not just a sitting official. We've done it once before, not with the president, with a cabinet secretary in the 19th century.
That could bar him from ever holding another U.S. office. The president now permanently suspended from Twitter, quote, due to the risk of further incitement of violence. A nationwide hunt to locate the rioters who stormed the Capitol. A number have already been arrested, including a man who was seen feet up on Speaker Nancy Pelosi's desk, and another who walked out with her podium. And lawmakers calling for a congressional investigation into security lapses at the Capitol during the storming of that building. Dave Packer, ABC News.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air.
You have questions. We have answers. News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Depend on it. WVNN.
Put it there, boy. We'll show these fascists what a couple of hillbillies can do. tell you fascists, you may be surprised. People in this world are getting organized. You're bound to lose, you fascists bound to lose.
All you fascists bound to lose.
I said,
All you fascists bound to lose.
yes, sir.
All you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose, you fascists bound to lose.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is David Story. Eric came with us over the break, and you know, David, you were saying some stuff during the break, and I wanted to reiterate that here. You know, you talked about there are so many with a, you know, you were talking about that Dunlop closed after the union came in, and there were so many similarly situated manufacturers that closed right around the same time that were not unionized. Most of the most workplaces in America are not unionized, and right around the same time, you've got so many different workplaces that are the jobs are being shipped overseas, and the correlation with the unions don't really hold up, but the correlation with NAFTA holds up a lot better, because before NAFTA, you had significantly higher unionization rate, but you didn't have nearly as many jobs being shipped overseas. If the unions were the problem, then what we would have seen would have been, when Alabama actually at one point had the highest unionization rate in the country. And what we would have seen at that time would have been jobs being shipped overseas. But that wasn't the case, because the laws were such that they couldn't do that. The tax laws, the import and export laws, they were such that you couldn't do that. Once the laws were such that you could ship jobs overseas, and you take advantage of foreign slave labor and then sell cheap products over here to American workers, that they're cheap because of slave labor, then the jobs get shipped overseas, union or not. And so
one of the things that I think is very important to point out, because you don't have and this is not a stab at Eric. This is simple groupthink type mentality that we get when we make broad-reaching statements. And what I do for a living is troubleshoot equipment and program equipment and things like that. And any engineer, this city's full of them. Mm-hmm. You can reach out to any one of them that deal with solving problems on a daily basis. One of the biggest statements you'll hear all of them make is correlation is not equal to causation. In other words, just because something happened here and then there was a reaction, that does not mean that that's what caused the problem. So correlation is not equal to causation. It takes a deeper dive to look at what's causing these problems. And it's very easy to say that just because a union come into Dunlop, that mm-hmm. caused the problem. It's a very broad, wide grasp of what,
And it's very easy to say, because that's exactly what Dunlop wants you to think. That's exactly what.
But the fact of the matter is,
everybody, all of the capitalist owners want you to think is that worker power is going to destroy jobs, and the fact of the matter is that's not true. And we talked to, at the beginning of this pandemic, when the airlines were going under, we talked to a representative from the Machinists Union who represents a lot of folks in the airline industry, and we talked to them about how their union was able to secure relief packages for the airlines. They were part of the reason that the airlines were able to stay afloat, that United Airlines and Delta didn't go under, was because you had unions lobbying Congress to save the industry.
And it happened the same in my workplace.
Right.
Our lobbyists at the Machinists Union in D.C. helped during the transition of away from Russian rockets into Russian engines in our rockets to American made. And I've got letters from several U.S. senators, our sitting senators, who Senator Shelby, you've never heard me say a bad thing about him, because mm-hmm. he's helped us tremendously. Right. And that is due to the union going in and lobbying Senator Shelby. Senator Shelby, and getting these legislators process implemented to help the business, not just the workers, but to help the business stay afloat as well. Eric, what else did you have to say?
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree a little bit on the first part, because the complaint with the union was not because of losing jobs to the union as a whole or the company as a whole. Is when they came in, they decided to close a local plant, which should have been the same cost to operate because of the fact that the union cost would have been the same. But they chose to close this plant than the one that they came from. Now, the second one is a little more personal, dealing with 2 years, a fourth and a fifth grade teachers, where the fourth grade teacher was going through a divorce. The union stepped in and would not let that teacher release, so she didn't teach for a year, so had a group of students that didn't learn for a year. And then going into fifth grade, and just by happenstance, had another teacher who was going through personal basically a meltdown. Didn't teach for a year, but the union stepped in and did not let that person leave. So that's where I say all unions are not right and all unions not wrong. But that's a case where 2 years had my student not be able to learn. So we had to supplement. And it took about 3 or 4 years to make up for the hassle of that two teachers that could not be removed because of the union.
Yeah.
What do you
I mean, it's
I'm sorry,
near impossible to dive into details, and you definitely don't want to share
but
details
because
over the
of the
radio.
union stepping in,
the union
instead of
stepped in
letting
and didn't
administration
allow
do
those
something.
teachers to be fired? Is that what you're saying?
No, one
They wouldn't let them be fired, nor would let them be moved. The philosophy was from the unions and tie into the principal we had, not the principal, superintendent we had at that time. That was very strong union. Was, well, we'll just let her finish out the year, and then we'll get rid of her. Like, that solved the problem for the 30 kids that were in the class. And that was 2 years in a row for many of those students.
Sounds like you just said the administration made that decision.
No, the union went to the superintendent, and they both agreed, but the unions were the one that were pushing and she was a pro-union superintendent at that time, and they agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect example of unions and businesses working in coordination to try to figure out what is the best.
I get out of your way.
I mean, I hate to be a pain, but whenever I'm talking, I try to give you the opportunity to talk, and then it's called a dialogue. So I think that's a perfect.
I'm just attempting to get something out quickly for you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I think that's a perfect example of unions and businesses. In this case, it was the school district working, hand in hand, coordinating to ensure that the employee wasn't wronged in this. And it may have had an effect on some of the people in that. For example, for the school children. And that is the fault of the administration for not saying, we're going to allow you to do this, but we're also going to shift some of this burden of these children into other areas and things like that. The point that I'm making is you can't put the entire problem on the union. There is a coordinated effort between the union and the company. And these contracts that we negotiate collectively, the company has just as much ability to walk away and say, no, we're not going to accept that, as the union does.
Not in that case, they didn't.
Well, I mean, you said that the administration made that decision, so I feel like...
No, the administration agreed with what the union brought to them.
So collectively, they all
allowed
agreed.
It to occur. They didn't stand up to the union because they can't.
I think they can. They can. I mean, they can.
Well, it doesn't work because the union bucks them so hard.
And what can the union do?
Have teachers walk.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
Have teachers stop teaching. Sit in the classroom and not teach.
Yeah.
Last one, which is I was I call it administrator. I was a professional working out at NASA. Did that for 3 years. One of my tasks as that professional is we would do surveys of all the property on NASA and who was in rooms and who was doing work and such. I would go to room after room where I would find, I'll say room after room, I probably toured 300 rooms, walked in on more than a dozen people sleeping in their office. I dealt with unions that were balking. They did not want to have the open collaboration as what we see in all these office spaces nationally now today, where people work together, and they want closed offices. We could not make a change because the union directly enforced that without a question. The administration that we were dealing with for that was union, and the union was not allowing any changes for that to be made. And I sat there and watched hundreds of thousands of dollars go to waste. That's misappropriation, but could do nothing about it. I also watched situations because of the union, and they do this right now at NASA. They hire people as professionals. So, for example, hired a person and used him as an electrical engineer. Someone had never done it. He graduated, but had no training, is not licensed as an electrical engineer, cannot be classified as one. He was designing a 1 megawatt utility plant for them that we were tearing apart as far as staff was, where it was falsely done and bad. They are risking the lives of people because they have people hired without a license, and they're using them as those, claiming they've got experience, and they're nothing but a draftsman.
Yeah, I mean,
and that is because of the union requiring that to occur nationally as far as NASA goes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, Eric, we appreciate your time. We're going to have to let you go. We had somebody else on the line that was wanting to talk.
Let me just say this for 1 second.
Well, I mean, real quick, as far as, the small anecdotes, we're only hearing one side of these stories. We're not hearing, as far as that teacher that was going through a divorce, I mean, that's tough. I know firsthand how hard that is, and we're not hearing from this listener her side of the story. We're not hearing her coworker side of the story. We're not hearing the administrator side of the story. And so, I don't know the extent to which the student's education was harmed. I don't know the extent to which the union that he was talking about was risking life by allowing people with experience and not degree qualifications do work. I don't know.
I know one thing. There's no such thing as a licensed engineer in Alabama.
No, there is. You can be a professional engineer.
The company determines who is qualified to perform engineer duties in their facility.
Yeah, that's true. But there is a professional engineer license. You can get your PE. I know there are people at my job that do that.
Yeah, exactly. A PE, and that gives you the ability to work in the public sphere.
Right.
You don't have to have a PE to work in the private sphere.
Okay.
And that is the point that I'm trying to make. Is yes, there is some regulations. My understanding was a lot of the right wing folks was against regulation, but the company in the private industry, you don't have to have a license. And the fact that someone went through 4 years of school and attained a bachelor's of science in engineering, if they're unable to perform their job, it is the company's responsibility to ensure that they're performing their job. It's not the union's responsibility to ensure. Now, granted, we take a lot of onus on ourselves to ensure that our members perform to the best of their ability. But at the end of the day, it is the company's job. And if the company is not doing that, that is not the fault of the union. That is the fault of the company.
Right, and if you listen to some of our interviews with some of the trade workers, they take a lot of pride in the training that they have, and look, I mean, maybe the union folks were wrong in this scenario. I'm not exactly sure, but that doesn't invalidate the fact that workers deserve to have a voice on the job. Workers deserve to have a say in their workplace, and that's what we're all about. So we got one more segment. We got one person on the line. We'll try to bring him on the other side. This is the Valley Labor Report.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, believes all workers are entitled to fairness, dignity, and respect. AFGE also knows that the best way to guarantee proper treatment is for workers to stand together, united, looking out for each other. In AFGE, we fight for workers every day to ensure a workplace that is safe and free from harassment. If you're a federal employee and want to be a part of this union, to protect yourself and your fellow workers, call 256-876-4880. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
WVNN. Depend on it.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. And really quick before we get to this caller, I want to mention that Joe Marshall, good brother from United Steelworkers out in the Florence Shoals area, called to make a correction for us on the on something that was said that Goodyear was not union. Goodyear was union with UFCW Local 88T, and they are still union even though they're now owned by some Korean manufacturing company. So the facility is still there.
Is it still there?
Facility's
well,
still
I don't live
there.
in Decatur any longer. I thought that facility closed down.
Facility's still there, owned by different people, same union.
So
hang
on a second.
That's what Joe said.
So Joe's, well, hey Joe, if you're still out there, we certainly appreciate you listening, and we certainly appreciate you calling in and correcting me on that. I thought they were closed down, and I didn't think they were union, but I guess
they
that
did not
kinda,
close down, and they are union. So
ain't that strange? Ain't that strange? So you mean that terrible union didn't close Goodyear down?
Right. They did not.
Good
they did not.
Lord.
So I think his name was Jack. I forget. I'm sorry. It's been so long. We talked to Eric for so long. But we got somebody on the line. I think Jack from Huntsville. You still on?
You there, Jack? Hello?
Your name may not have been Jack, but you going once, still there, going twice, gone. 1-866-494-9866 is the number. I don't know if we'll take any more calls. We only got like 8 more minutes. But I've got my little sidekick Guthrie here. I foster a lot of dogs. Sometimes I bring them into the studio with me. May end up keeping this one, so you may see Guthrie more often.
You're gonna keep that ratty looking dog.
I may keep this.
The ratty looking ones are always my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm the underdog supporter.
Well, I like. I got a thing for small dogs, and I do have a slight dog allergy, so I like him to be hypoallergenic. He's a terrier. Terriers are hypoallergenic, and
you need to take a moment and discuss what you do. I mean, that what you do. It sounds menial, but you do important work.
Oh no, I don't know about that. If you're interested in fostering animals, you should. You can go to A New Leash on Life. They are a local animal shelter. I have been fostering through them for the last year. I think old Guthrie's probably my 16th now that I've fostered. I've fostered puppies. I've fostered adult dogs. And it's great. I enjoy it. It's good. Puppies. It's fun getting to play with puppies. They're also a lot of work. So having these older, more calm dogs like Guthrie here, that's got its place too. And I may end up. I've been looking for a dog for a while now. So Guthrie may be. I've been wanting to get one, but all the dogs that I've been fostering are like not hypoallergenic. So.
Well, I mean, and what you're doing is a perfect example, a perfect solution to what it's an expression of direct action through mutual aid, and you're taking on some of the puppies in these what are they? I hate to say pound, but I mean that's kind
shelters.
of what shelters exactly.
Yeah, so so a New Leash on Life, one of the things that they do is sometimes people will drop dogs off to them directly, but also they will whenever they've got extra room, they'll actually go to what we would call a pound, like Huntsville Animal Services or Morgan County Animal Services, and take dogs from them, because New Leash on Life is a no-kill animal shelter where the pounds they euthanize if a dog like overstays their welcome, so to speak. And so to prevent as many euthanasians as possible, a New Leash on Life will take dogs from there. I think Guthrie actually came from the Morgan County Animal Services, and like if you see him on the stream, the vet said he was only 3 or 4, but I've got a hard time believing that. He looks he's pretty old, and if you see him walk,
but I mean the thing is, it's good work.
It's as much for me as it is for the dogs. Help me not feel so lonely. Help me have a little companion. It's nice. I like it.
Yeah, the problem with us is, you said you've gotten 16 over the past year.
Yeah, you did.
If we had done that, we would have 16 dogs in the yard, because I mean, my whole family is like just animal lovers. So we couldn't, once we got attached to one in a week, we couldn't let it go back. But I mean, it's good work, and I think it's important work that you're doing, and it gives people an opportunity to connect with animals that may have been tossed aside, instead of supporting these puppy mill, crap situations where you pay $1,000 for a dog. And these are the last one I fell in love with, and this one I like just because he's such
he's so calm and just chill. Very good dog. Very good dog. I don't really have anything else to talk about the last 4 minutes, so I'll just go through and read some of the comments that we've gotten on the stream, and maybe give a quick response to them. You want to do that?
Sounds good.
Okay. North Georgia Anti-Fascist says, hello, fellow workers. Hello, North Georgia Anti-Fascist. Andrew
Good morning.
Wilkins says, I, North Georgia. Morning, all. Thank y'all for listening. Really appreciate it. Jason says, no, Brooks should be removed for his role in the violence on the 6th. I agree. No Mo BS is what the Alabama Democrats are calling their fund. If you want to donate to the Alabama Democratic Party, is they've got a fund out that's going to go to the next Mo Brooks opponent. So if you want to help Mo Brooks' next opponent in 2022, you should check out the Alabama Democrats Twitter feed. That's actually pretty good. It's a lot better now that they've got new leadership. It is not a bad follow if you're on Twitter. I will say that. They've got some good clapbacks. Please get Marjorie Taylor Greene while you're at it. Yes, I agree, Andrew. Marjorie is terrible. North Georgia says that Greene is in their area. Don't know if man or woman. Andrew said, respect to these miners. Need to get off fossil fuels, but until we do, the workers need what they deserve. Totally agree with that. We do need to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels. But in the meantime, and after that, the workers that work in these fossil fuel industries, they deserve a living wage, and they deserve representation and a voice on the job. North Georgia,
actually, they deserve everything that they generate.
That's right. Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor. North Georgia Anti-Fascist says, I traveled an hour to Northeast Alabama for work, and I'm playing this show out in the shop now. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you very much for that. Michael Creel says, hello, everyone. Hello, Michael. Skullmiser says, have you guys seen Walmart's anti-union worker training video? I have not. You
I
have?
have seen Walmart's and I have seen Lowe's, and they are absolutely terrible.
Yep. Maybe we can play that on the show one day and react.
And we'll get a copyright infringement, trademark infringement.
Well, they can't get us on the radio.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it would be a good talking point.
Yeah. Michael says, my partner works at Walmart, and it's wild the stuff they come up with. I do not doubt it. Has anyone else in the area felt a weird energy from all these MAGA people creeping me out? I agree. MAGA people creep me out. No, I'm kidding. Most of my family is MAGA people. Hello, family.
Don't start this with 1 minute. I mean,
some of it now. The out there folks, they creep me out.
The
QAnons, they are loony. I do not have any QAnon family. Amazon Video isn't great. Andrew says probably not. Andrew is trying to unionize. Oh, folks, if you want to organize, go to the Huntsville IWW Facebook page and Twitter account. We've got an organizer training starting in an hour. Folks,
1 hour.
1 hour. We will see you
next week.
WVNN Athens, WVNN FM Trinity, a Cumulus station. It's 11 o'clock. News starts now.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packard. New developments in the nationwide